All right. Well, good afternoon and welcome again, Realty Pros. Today we are talking about various case studies. So as we said, there have been quite a number of different dynamic transactions that we've had going on. And the information that we were able to share with those of you and your colleagues to get them through the transactions, we just want to make sure that everybody's aware of those things so that you know how to navigate when you get those seemingly difficult transactions, okay? So we're going to talk about some topics that we have on the agenda for today, but we want to give you guys the liberty to introduce a topic in the event that you've seen something that you say, okay, well, this was very different or this was interesting. How do I handle that topic? Okay, so we'll begin, but then the floor will be open to discussion. All right, Mr. Porter, you are my co-host. Say something and let me know that you're there.
Check.
Perfect. All right. So we will go ahead and begin. The first topic that I want to address today is a question that I've gotten quite a number of times from your colleagues, and it is surrounding this voucher situation. So for those of you who have licenses in DC, you know that in the fair housing rules and regulations in DC, the laws of DC, vouchers are included in a protected class called source of income. So at Porterhouse, we extend that same thing to Maryland as well. So whenever the question is asked, hey, do we take vouchers? The answer is always yes. Okay, so whatever that conversation is with yourself and your client who you may have a listing lease with, the answer to that question is always yes. We absolutely take vouchers. We help voucher holding participants, and that's everywhere that we're licensed. Although the law only extends to DC, at Porterhouse we do it everywhere. Okay, so the nature of that conversation is simply that of all of our clients will be vetted based on credit, income, and assets. And when it's a rental, it's also the background check and rental history verification, but every source of income is qualifiable income. So I want to make sure that all of us are aware of that, because then when you start to say that you don't, then you get into the protected class discrimination, and that is not something that we do here at Porterhouse. So I just want to make sure that that is perfectly clear. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Yes, I do, Jasmine. I was under the impression that when they, I guess they made that a protected class, that Maryland was included, or at least limited to PG County for the October 2020 time frame. So you're saying it applies to to DC, and is it a source of, is source of income a protected class also in Maryland, or just DC?
So I need to verify those updates as of October, because Porterhouse, we've always done it in Maryland. So if Maryland has caught up, that's great, but it's a requirement at Porterhouse that we do. So beyond Prince George's County. So you may be working in Calvert County, you may be working in Montgomery County, you may be working in Howard County, Anne Arundel County. So beyond Prince George's County and beyond Washington, DC, anytime we have a voucher holding tenant, that is income that we consider as well. We don't discriminate based on any income. Okay. And we simply need to have those conversations with our clients to make sure that our clients know that, hey, you know, if this client qualifies based on the criteria that you set for the credit, you know, for the income or whatever the case is, their source of income, that's protected there. Okay. That's the first thing that I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of there. Does anybody have any other questions?
Jasmine, I do. I kind of came in late. Is this only in reference to rental properties, or is this for properties that are being purchased as well?
So definitely for properties that are being purchased, but you don't get that question for properties that are being purchased because your vouchers are usually for rentals.
Okay.
So that's normally when you're going to run into that. And if you guys have any questions with how to assist a voucher holding tenant, just reach out to us and ask us. We have several of your colleagues who are experts in this area, along with myself. So you're going to have quite a number of people that you can reach out to help. To help you in that area. And D'Amica is one of them. So D'Amica is one of them. I'm not sure if she's on the call today, but she does an exceptional job with helping voucher holding tenants. So if you haven't gotten your feet wet or you just don't know what to do, then she's somebody that I would definitely recommend that you call. Okay. And then as it pertains to our rental requirements for DC and Maryland, all of the documentation is the same, and it's right in your broker mint library as your resource. All right, Mr. Porter, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
No.
All right. So before I go into the next topic, let me ask you guys, what's something that you faced and you say, okay, well, this would be an interesting topic for a case study. How do I handle this? Does anybody have anything that they'd like to throw out there?
I just want to mention, Jasmine, that I'm actually working with a voucher recipient now. And so that was a good topic to discuss. So thank you.
You got it. Perfect. All right, guys. So then let's move into another topic as it pertains to appraisals, as it pertains to overpriced offers, as it pertains to this aggressive COVID market that we're in. Now, I know that we've had this conversation in quite a number of our other trainings, and various of you on here were there, and I want to see who's paying attention. So I'm going to throw out the question to you that I get from your colleagues to see who I need to point them to the next time someone has a question. All right, guys. So if you have a listing and you receive overpriced offers on your listings, what are some of the considerations that are involved with receiving an overpriced offer on your listing?
Cash only offer?
Expound a little bit more, Angela. What do you mean when you say a cash only offer?
Well, not like I have any expertise in this area, but it sounds like if somebody comes to the table and says they have all cash, then you would accept that over somebody that's dealing with, a loan situation.
Okay, that's interesting. We're going to talk through that.
So it would,
Coming in from D, FHA appraisals.
it would just, you would want to look at the financing type. So if you have multiple offers over a list, then you're going to consider what the financing is for each particular offer. Cash would be king. Under that would be conventional financing. And then you would look at your FHA, VA loans. But the main thing is just going to be how they're financed from that.
Now, let me ask you, why is that a consideration?
Because it's going to show how strong the buyer is so that you will close out the deal. So at the end of the day, you could have $200,000 over list, but is it going to settle? So the cash buyer on paper is going to be the strongest buyer. However, that still doesn't mean that that cash buyer will work out. My situation, I just had a cash buyer and a conventional, and we actually ended up going with the conventional offer and not the cash buyer. But those would be the main things, is you're going to get that deal to close. So that's why you want to look at how it's financed.
So that's some really good insight. And I want to kind of dissect that a little bit. Does anybody have any questions about anything that Curtis just said before I dive in?
Ms. Porter, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what he said, but I can imagine that if it's a cash offer, a lot of times cash offer people may have more contingencies. Maybe they may want definitely want an appraisal. They may definitely want a inspection, because they feel that since they're coming strong with cash, they may want to add more things into the offer. So I can see why a person maybe would accept a conventional, loan or FHA loan or something that weren't asking for all of those things.
Okay, so let's dissect both of those, because there are a couple of points that I heard from both of you that are very good for this topic of conversation. Essentially, at the core of what Curtis is saying is that you want to make sure that the buyer is financially sound when you are accepting an overpriced offer so that they can actually get to settlement. Now, that being said, with conventional, your buyers are putting down a whole lot more money. However, with FHA, it doesn't mean that they don't have the money. So I want to make sure that we make that differentiation there, because we just closed a transaction with a buyer that paid $50,000 over list price, and they were an FHA buyer. So the question becomes, do they have the money to pay the difference in the event that the property does not appraise for the contract price? Okay. Now, of course, we know that with the conventional buyers, they're putting down 10%, 20%, and they are a little bit more liquid in terms of their assets. But the question remains, can that person who has FHA do the same? And if they can, then that's great, because you move forward just the same. If, however, they can't, and if all they have is the 3.5%, then that's what's going to be the difference maker for your seller. Does that make sense? All right, I'll keep going.
Yes.
So then, as it pertains to what Kerma was saying, it's actually on the contrary with your cash buyers. Your cash buyers normally come without a load of contingencies. And the benefit with the cash buyer is that the first and foremost contingency you don't have to worry about is your financing contingency. So normally your cash buyers, they'll come in and, it'll be non-contingent if they are investors. If they are purchasing homes that they intend to occupy, then they may have other contingencies, but it's not a wash. It's not that they're going to come in with more contingencies because they're a cash buyer. But normally with a cash buyer, sometimes they will not make the purchase contingent upon the appraisal. So you just got to dissect the offer and look at all of those fine pieces, and not think that it's automatically, a better offer because it's a cash offer, or that it's automatically a better offer because it's conventional or FHA. You simply got to pick through each one of those components and ask those questions, so that you make sure that you are helping your seller to choose the contract, or to ratify the contract that's actually going to get through to close. All right. So my question for you, when you receive those overpriced offers, how do you respond as the listing agent? How do you respond to the offer if by chance your listing is $675 and you're getting offers in that are $750? What is one of the things that you need to do to make sure that you're helping to protect your seller, to make sure that they can actually get the value of the contract?
Well, what we did was did an addendum, just to make sure that they were protected, so they can't be held to that. But it is proof that they have skin in the game and they really want the house.
Okay, elaborate on that. What do you mean that we did an addendum? I know because we did it together, but just
I
lay it
can't
out.
remember. I can't remember what the actual addendum was. It could have been a general addendum, and we just kind of worded it to basically say that no, they're not held responsible for the remaining balance. It's only what they are appraised for. So the other side won't think that, oh, they automatically have to pay that difference.
Okay. So I want to make sure that we are on.
That's from the buying side, right? Because now you're protecting your buyer, but from the listing side, I don't want that. No, you're going to bring that money to the table.
Yeah, from the listing side, definitely. So from the buying side, we know that our consideration.
So I think what your question, Jasmine's question was Rhonda. I think she was asking, how do we protect the seller, the person that's listing the property? And your answer was about how to protect the buyer. So you on my side right now. So, on Jasmine's side though, I think Curtis was going to kind of answer. What would you do on the listing side, Curtis?
Yeah, so on the listing side, what we would do is have a conversation with the buying agent and letting them know that we're expecting the buyer to come to the table if the property does appraise under the contract price, that they are willing to come to the table with some sort of funding, some kind of money to cover that difference. So this way it eliminates too, just somebody out there just throwing out a big number, then sitting back, hoping that it's going to appraise less, and then coming back like, hey, it appraised lower, we can only settle for this amount. So by doing an addendum after the conversation with the buyer, if they agree to kick in $25,000, to cover that difference, whether it appraises 5,000 under, 10,000 under, or up to $25,000 under, that buyer is going to be willing to bring that difference to the table. So then it's just an addendum, just stating that language of, buyer agrees to bring up to $25,000 to cover any difference on the appraisal. And so this way you have the seller, your client's protected because they know that they can get up to that 25K, if it appraises less. And then the buyer, they're looking good because now they're really putting skin in the game and showing you how bad they want that property, which then too, because you're still negotiating, is going to make that buyer stand out a lot stronger on paper than, somebody who's not going to do anything.
You got it. And essentially that addendum, we keep saying the addendum. I want for everybody who hasn't yet had this experience to know what that language needs to entail. And that language is going to be very simple. In the event that the property does not appraise for the contract price of, and you put the contract price, buyer agrees to pay the difference, simply put. So that's what you're going to include in a general addendum. And you're going to have that executed along with the contract. And that's how you protect your seller, to make sure that, just like Curtis said, they're not just being wooed into an overpriced offer and the buyer has no intention on, moving forward with paying that price.
Wait a minute, boss lady. Yeah, wait a minute. Because I'm going, me and Rhonda have some things we want to chime in since this is case study day.
Okay.
So on the position of porterhouse guys, remember you wearing two hats depending on who you're representing. You're representing the seller. That's everything that you want to do to protect porterhouse sellers. Okay. On the buyer side, though, what Rhonda was saying is absolutely true. You want to do that same type of thing that the sellers want to do. They want to do an addendum saying, hey, if the house doesn't appraise, because they already know it's not going to appraise. See, they trying to pull one over on the buyers here. If the house doesn't appraise, you agree to pay the difference. Well, in the market, the current market that we're in COVID market, okay, we have to play the game. We have to play the game. We have to be aggressive. We have to be overly aggressive. We got to actually be bare knuckle bloody in this market. So we have to get our buyers prepared that this is going to happen. Okay, we're going to get into a situation where we're going to make an offer over and above the price, way over and above the price of what the property is listed. Then there is a chance that the appraiser could find some comps that get you very close to that above price offer. However, what's really reasonable, and this is where buying strategy kicks in, because what you have to be savvy enough to see is that there's going to be a number which is going to be pushing the envelope, so to speak. What I don't want you all to do is push it so far that now your buyer really can't perform, meaning they can't find that money to come up with, or the lender's calling you back and asking you how much of your commission are you willing to give up to close this deal. And that's what's going to happen, because at some point the lender can only loan X amount of dollars, and then everything else, what the property appraised for, and then everything else is the buyer's responsibility to come up with. What you don't want to do is put your buyer in a situation where they might have some extra money that they can come up with closing, but that additional money is just no way they're going to be able to make it. So now the question is, okay, who has the money? Well, you're getting some commission. So people are stupid. They want to start looking at your commission. And the lender's going to be the last person to put in the pot. You might call the title company. You might give you a couple of dollars. But the majority of the money, if anything is going to happen, it's going to come from the buyer agent commission. All right. So you don't want to put yourself in that situation. So what I would suggest is that you give a number, and you could either go with, splitting the difference. So for instance, if Curtis is 25, if your client can come up with, 17K extra, then you say, okay, I know there might be a $25,000 gap. We're willing to go up to half of the 25 or 17.5 or something like that. Or you might want to say, we'll pay $3,000 over asking, but you have to be realistic. So this is something that you all need to strategize with your buyers way before you get the appraisal back. I'm in that very situation right now where there's an $8,000 gap, Curtis, and I know there's little money for Curtis, people like Curtis, $1 million listings and all that kind of stuff. But it's an $8,000 gap. My client does not have the $8,000. My client can come up with about $5,000, but that's not good enough for the seller. The seller wants the $8,000. Okay, so today we're at an impasse. So what that mean? What does that mean? That means that as the buyer's agent, Mr. Porter's going to have to start to think about how much of his commission is he willing to share. Well, the first number I go to, guys, is the $795, which I've already been compensated. See, this is why we tell you collect that $795 up front. We've been in the game long enough. We know they're going to come to us first. So the first thing I'm gonna tell the lender to do, okay, put that $795 in the machine, call the listing agent, ask him if he'll put 1%, because he's already stealing 0.5%. The listing agents, y'all gotta watch these listing agents, people. They put that extra 3.5% on all of their things and give us 2.5%. So why don't you contribute that 0.5%? Now he contributed the 0.5%. Now he wants me to contribute 0.5%. Well, that's not fair. I gave $795. I'm already taking 0.5% less. But guess what? I charge my buyer a 1% additional cost. So I might give up another 0.5%. So you want to play with those numbers in a way that you bring in as much commission as the buyer agent as you can. Don't scrap your buyer, but still be competitive. So it's a lot of calculations that you have to do. And if you need strategies, you need to call me so we can talk through those things before you get to this point. So there's ways to do it. I'm going to be quiet, Jasmine, because I can go on and on about that. But you just have to be strategic up front and disclose to people what's going to happen. That's where you are a professional. That's when your knowledge kicks in. And just the mere fact that you have those conversations with people up front, it shows how much training, how well-rounded you are as an agent. And it behooves you to kind of expect what other people would consider unexpected.
Excellent. Thank you so much for adding that. That was going to be our next talking point, and that was perfectly stated, guys. We were talking about the listing agent side, but of course, when you're representing the buyer, you've got to wear that buying agent hat and do exactly what Mr. Porter said. Those conversations absolutely have to be had in advance. So if you know that the listing agent you're dealing with is as savvy as you are, because they're going to protect their client and make sure that an offer that you're submitting is not just an overpriced offer to get the offer accepted, then that agent's going to ask for you and your buyer, if your buyer's willing to pay the difference. You absolutely have that conversation, just like Mr. Porter said. Speak with a buyer. Hey, the seller's countering. Are you willing to pay the difference in the event that it does not appraise? And just like Mr. Porter said, find out what that difference is that the buyer can pay without overextending the buyer or overcommitting the buyer to something that they can't actually produce. That is crucial. That is critical. That is a conversation that needs to be had. It needs to be had verbally, and it needs to be had in writing. So at least 3 times the buyer needs to see that. They need to either see and hear it. You need to have that conversation with them over the phone. You need to have it in writing, where you're sending them an email reiterating those things and having them to respond to you in writing what their comfort zone is and what they're willing to pay above the appraised value in the event that such an event occurs. And then you include it in the contract as well. So one week without the other is insufficient. We got to make sure that we are protecting our buyers, and you're covering Porterhouse and yourself in that regard.
Hey, real quick with all of that, I'm sure that Shay, representing that buyer, like reached out to that listing agent and had a conversation. And with these transactions, guys, I can't stress enough that being on the listing side, the contract we ended up eventually accepting, the agent and I established a very good relationship on the phone, prior to even all the offers coming in. And so, you know, when you establish that, not a text or an email, but when you pick up the phone and you actually verbally talk to somebody, have a nice conversation, you know, you're standing out in the pile of offers, and that then it becomes this negotiating. So, you know, you want to be in a deal with somebody that you kind of are enjoying, or at least, you can just call and talk and figure out how we can make this work, than having somebody who's, pushy or extremely, not aggressive, but you may not want to deal with that person, and their offer may not end up getting accepted. So, it goes a long way to just have that conversation and to talk to people, to then hopefully get you to settlement. But I just wanted to point that out because I'm sure he did that. More, call him, talk to him, get on the phone and build that relationship. Because that's what happened with mine. Like literally, the other agent was cash. They had a full same amount, and you could already start to see this pushback. And they thought because they were cash that they were just going to be able to do what they wanted to do. And my client immediately nixed them, go to the next one, and bam, it's been a great, we have a little thing we have to work on now, but it's just, hey, give her a call. She calls me, we'll figure it out so we can get this thing closed. So the call is very important.
Excellent. All right, guys. Does anybody have any questions surrounding how to deal with offers if you're the listing agent that are overpriced or on the buying side? Mr. Porter, I see you have something to add. Go ahead.
No, I was going to, I'm jumping in there, and you guys got to excuse me for clearing my throat. But Curtis brings up some interesting information, and I like the fact that we're kind of, going back and forth, because that's really what happens in the transaction, Curtis. And it's very important, as Curtis said, to establish a rapport. What you guys are going to find in a lot of situations in real estate, you're going to be on the opposite side of the transaction of a less professional person than you might want to be. All right. You can build a rapport, you can establish a relationship, but God forbid, we get into a situation like what Curtis is describing, where you're representing the listing agent and the appraisal comes back low, and now the buyer starts to get a little shaky, and the buyer agent is calling you. Sometimes you'll have agents that'll start to scream on you, or they'll get loud. They'll get, like your buyer's going to lose, then they're going to start making threats and all that kind of stuff. I want you guys to never, ever engage in anything like that, because it always goes south quick. In a situation like that, you kind of have to just let that person do their thing. That's what they want to do. That's how they want to speak. They haven't learned to be professional in this business, and quite frankly, they might not last too long, because eventually that kind of stuff catches up with people. But you don't want to engage in that type of behavior. You want to keep it professional. And then at that point, that's when you have to remember that you represent the buyer's wishes. You're the messenger, and the person attacking you, they're getting personal, as if they're buying the house or if they're selling the house. So some type of fear has happened. So they're afraid to either go back and tell the seller the message that your buyer is telling you to bring to the table. So don't engage in that type of thing. And in that kind of situation, what you want to do, if the verbal communication breaks down, immediately start putting things in writing, and make sure that whatever you're articulating is not your own wishes on behalf of the buyer or the seller, but rather what the seller or the buyer wants to have happen. Now, you can always give them your opinion, but at some point you have to know when to turn over control of the transaction to the buyer or seller. So in this particular instance, what I wanted to say is, at some point, in Curtis's situation, as the buyer agent, I'm gonna go to my buyer and say, okay, guys, how bad do you really want this house? Because if you want it bad enough, then you're gonna have to, we're gonna have to put up the money, and we're gonna all have to kind of ante up, and we're all gonna have to put some skin in the game to get you this house. and that's where it's going to go. And you have to do the best you can to try to meet the seller halfway. And hopefully the seller will meet you halfway and not pull the plug, but you want to close the deal. So if you're going through that scenario and you start to get a person that gets a little irate, just start letting your paperwork, so to speak, do your talking, and not adding a whole bunch of emotional content to it when you're sending an email. Please see attached general addenda signed by buyer. That's it. You send it over. Let me know when your seller has received it, because that's their job. Their job is to, whatever the buyer sent, the seller has to get it, and then the seller needs to respond to it. And I even had last night, we're going back and forth on this inspection thing. We have people that's been in the industry for a long time, top agents over at other companies. I don't know what kind of training they're getting, but they don't know that on the inspection, just going back and forth on the inspection, there's 3 parts to the inspection. The buyer asks for the repairs. The seller either offers the repairs, doesn't offer the repairs, offers a credit, or doesn't. And then the buyer receives it. And that's the way all transactions are supposed to work. So you start out with the rapport, but if it goes sideways, what I wanted to say to you guys is don't engage. Don't engage. Call us, vent with us, tell us about how they cuss you out. I'm going to say, welcome to real estate. Tell us all of the things that has happened, and we're going to give you a strategy. This is the way you move forward, because you're still going to close the deal. And a lot of times you'll win those people over at the end of the transaction because of your professionalism. And that's very important for me. And I wanted to say that because we have some people that's going through things and agents aren't talking to them very kindly. And, that's just unacceptable. But we can deal with it. We'll call brokers. We'll do all of that kind of stuff. We'll let them know it's unacceptable. They need to talk to them about ethics and morals and how you talk to people and not threatening realtors. We'll do all of that behind the scenes, but don't engage. I wanted to say that. Keep it as professional as possible. When the verbal rapport, if it breaks down, start putting things in writing. And remember, you're communicating on behalf of your client, not yourself, not what you want to happen in the transaction. Be very, very careful with that.
Can I add something?
Sure. What do you have?
I just wanted to say that I literally, and Jasmine and Shay knows about that, I literally just went through that with my last transaction, and I can absolutely say it was extremely hard for me not to say anything, but I had, because I'm just really big on respect all the way around. And my attitude has always been, I'm grown, you're not going to talk to me like that. But I had to constantly pray about it. I had to constantly remind myself that this is about my buyer. This is about my buyer, my client. So I had to, just refrain from, because the broker, who was actually the agent, but she just so happened to be the broker as well, she was very rude. And Jay and Shazman know about the situation. And, I just had to, suppress what I wanted to say. And it all worked out and everything was fine. But it will be hard and challenging sometimes. But I just say pray about it and just keep in mind what you want the end result to be. And that's kind of how I got through it.
Thank you so much for adding that, Rhonda. I want to say something.
One more thing. Okay, I'm sorry, Dad. I want to say, because that was Rhonda, and anybody else listening, in the grand scheme of things, let me explain. As many transactions as you're going to do, at the end of the day, you're going to remember that something happened in this transaction, but it's not going to be that important. So in the moment, it feels like it's that important, but when it's all said and done, it's really not that important. You're moving on to the next transaction. You gain some valuable information from the last transaction, but you don't want to engage in anything like that, because that's the kind of stuff that comes back and haunts you in ways that you can't expect. It's not worth it. So it's not personal. This is business. Some people can't handle it. God knows what they're going through, or, you know, and they've lost sight of what the goal is, or they're frustrated in their business, but that's not something that you want to take as part of your journey in real estate. You know, you want to stay positive, you want to stay focused, and you want to keep it moving forward, because this is just a transaction. It's not the transaction. So every transaction is a transaction. It's important because it's important to your clients, but you move on. You move on to the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And you're not going to even, it's just never that important to engage in something that's going to jeopardize your character. It's never that important. I just want to say that.
Thank you so much for adding that from both of you, because that is crucial. In this industry, you are going to come across so many agents that have varying levels of professionalism. Okay. At Porterhouse, however, our standard is customer service, professionalism, and all of the things that we talk about. So you will have some agents that you work with. You'll start to notice, okay, well, these particular agents, you know, they are professional, or these particular agents, they don't respond in the most professional light. You never want anybody to be able to say that about you. You represent your buyer, you represent your seller, you represent your brokerage, you represent yourself as, you know, a business owner. Every last one of you, you're business owners. We're all business owners, and no differently than, say, by chance, if you owned, you know, a nice restaurant and somebody came in and they were unprofessional. If you were a bystander and you watched, you know, the wait staff or the management handle an unprofessional customer in an also unprofessional manner, what impression would that give you of that organization? What impression would that give you? So you want to make sure that you consider things from that perspective. You are representing your client's best interest first and foremost. So it doesn't matter how, I tell you, you will see, and here's some things with some of your colleagues in this industry here. It doesn't matter how rude, how unprofessional they get. You be professional. And just like Mr. Porter said, when it gets to that point, that's when you simply start responding with paperwork. You don't respond with heated text messages, heated emails. And when you see them send heated emails and text messages, you act like they don't even exist. You go to the client and you get to the core of whatever the concern is. If the buyer is asking for something, or if the seller is asking for something, you simply effectuate an addendum to send that over, and you allow your document to communicate for you. I just want to reiterate one more time, because that was such a crucial point. That's what's going to separate the professional agents from the non-professional agents. And when your clients have to, you know, give you reviews, if they have to refer you to somebody else, or even if by chance you end up on the buying side of a transaction and the agent that you just told about themselves, now they're the listing agent. How is that going to work out for your now client? Because that's the agent that you just told off really badly a few transactions ago. So you want to consider that you are representing your buyer, your seller, your brokerage, and yourself as a business owner, and just make sure that we're making those professional choices there. Excellent pointers, guys. Does anybody have any questions about that?
No, one thing I can say, Jasmine, just closing that piece out, is that people will either they will remember you, or they will never forget you. Okay, and it's two different things. You know, remembering somebody, you did a great transaction with somebody, you remember them. You say, man, I can't wait to do another transaction with that guy again. Never forgetting you, on the other hand, means, boy, that was a horrible person to work with. I will never forget the pain that person put me through. If I ever see their name, you're waiting for that person to need you on one side or the other. And you just won't want to do business with them. You'll have a client might want that house, and subliminally, you will probably do things to try to avoid that. And I don't want you all to get caught up in that. Be the professional, be the leader all the time. That's what we want you to do at Porterhouse. Always be the leader in the transaction. I'm going to tell you something. It's a great recruiting tool. Jasmine is working with a client now, an agent now, who's obviously not been well prepared, but we're getting through the transaction. And once we close, that person, I gotta come join the Porterhouse. And you see people popping up all the time, welcome to Porterhouse. Sometimes these people are coming from the opposite side of the transaction. And even if they're not treating you well by the way you treat them, they feel like they need to be in a better environment. And that's what we want you all to exude at all times.
That leads us to our next talking point, guys. Commission. As the listing agent, you establish what the commission is going to be for both yourself and for the buying agent. Okay. As the buying agent, you establish what your commission is going to be between you and your buyer. Okay. Whatever you negotiate in your commission, it's up to you. Now, I say that with full insight that we are not a discount brokerage, so I'm not talking about on the discount aspect. But if by chance you want to negotiate, a 6.5% commission for listing, a 7% commission for listing, whatever it is that you negotiate that your seller client agrees to, that's what your commission is. And I say that because we've had those conversations with agents in the past and they feel totally uncomfortable. They're like, well, I'm not comfortable negotiating a 7% commission. But that same person that Shay just referenced that I'm doing a transaction with now, he is a brand new agent who's only done 2 transactions, brand new in the game, straight out the gate, negotiated a 7% commission. And the only way that I know that is because he was not aware that in sending over his buyer's offer, he wasn't supposed to send over his brokerage agreement with his client. So he's sending over the brokerage agreement and I'm helping him to sort through it, letting him know which documents are supposed to be submitted with the offer, which ones are not, but he's sending over his agreement. And I see this brand newbie right out the door negotiating a 7% commission. What does that say? That says that if you are comfortable with what the value that you provide as a professional, and if you're able to negotiate a commission with your client that they are fine with, absolutely go for it in that regard. This same agent, brand new, now we're working together on 2-sided transaction. He negotiated with his buyer for a 3.5% commission. Okay. He's brand new. And I keep saying brand new because oftentimes when we get more seasoned and we learn what the norm is, we're a little bit more uncomfortable stepping outside of the norm. But when you're brand new, opportunities are endless and you don't see things with the same you don't see things being confined in the same way to the norm in a sense. Okay. So from that perspective, on the listing side of the transaction, like Mr. Porter said, when you're the listing agent, you get to determine what your listing commission is going to be. You get to determine what portion of your commission you're willing to share with the buying agent. And I was really impressed with this young man because at Porterhouse, we've always done our due diligence to fight for our agents to make sure that your full 3% commission is paid on the buying side, no matter what the listing agent is offering. You get your full 3% because we simply collect it from the buyer. Know that your buyer brokerage agreement comes before, any of the transactions come. You've already established that your fee for that buying agent side is going to be 3%. Now, this young man negotiated 3.5%. You guys are able to do that. So I was really impressed by that. And that was something that I wanted to share with our agents. Just know that if you can negotiate a better commission for yourselves, you guys are worth it. You earn it. You work very hard, very diligently for your clients. Some clients you're working with for months at a time. Some it may be 2 months, 3 months, some it may be 10 months. So if you negotiate, a higher commission, then you have well earned that. You've earned that commission probably, double fold in a sense because of all of the time and the effort that you've put in. And when you consider from this perspective, what job, if you were an employee, what job can you go to and work for a person for 3 months, 6 months, 10 months, a year, and only make a flat rate? A flat percentage. It doesn't happen. So consider it like that. When you are an employee, if you're working for somebody for a year, you have a whole yearly salary. If you're working for them for 6 months, you have half your yearly salary, and so forth and so on. So when it comes to your commission, you got to negotiate it knowing that your time, your energy, your effort, your expertise, your counsel, your advice, and everything that it takes from you to get your client through that transaction, you have earned your commission. So I want you guys to be empowered to negotiate on your own behalf for your full commission first and foremost, and in instances where applicable, for a higher commission if need be. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that?
I don't have any questions. I love it. It's important for you guys to remember, you're working for 3 cents on every $100 of a transaction. I mean, $3 on every $100 of a transaction. And $3 out in the transaction is really not a lot when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you guys, like Jasmine said, if you're working hard, and anybody who's a buyer's agent, you guys we work real hard. Showing houses now in this aggressive market where you only can get a 5-minute showing or a 10-minute showing, that's some hard work, and then just scheduling, and then these deadlines, you got a deadline, you got to turn it in by this time. So it's a lot of work. It's very hectic. We want you to learn the buyer side. It's a psychology to what we do. Because Curtis is experiencing it now. Curtis has been working as a buyer agent for a long time. Now his listings are popping. So he knows how the buyers are thinking. He knows strategically how to list the property. He knows how to draw the buyers in, because guess what? He's been a buyer's agent for so long now that when he markets a property, he's like just beating the drum to the door. And this is what we want you guys to understand. So we start you out with, buyer clients. We always start you out with buyer clients. And we want you to understand how that process and what the buyers are going to experience and what's going on. Because once you get that listing, you're going to know how to get that path beat right to the door and get the maximum amount of money for that house, because you understand the mentality of buyers and buyers agents. So it's a method to our madness. We want you all to grab everything that real estate has to offer you, but don't sell yourself short. If you can master 3.5% plus 795, get it. 4%, I don't get it. $1,000, 3% plus $1,000, get it. It's your choice. But once you go up, you can't go back. You can't go back. So make sure that your confidence is there, your pitch is there, you can sell it, make it happen. And I'm proud of that. I don't even know the young man, but I've heard about him. And, I know he needs a lot of support. I would love to work with him. But just the mere fact that he's going out, he's getting the money that he deserves in this business is what we're looking for. We want you all to be the same kind of go-getters, level up, as somebody just put in the chat. Let's level up this year. There's no point in you all doing this much work and not coming out with the same results or better than anybody else in the industry.
Thank you for that. There is one more thing. I see somebody has their hand up. Okay, so who is this? I see someone, it's listed as iPhone. Take yourself off mute. Let us know who you are.
It's me, Darlene.
Hey, Darlene.
Hey. So what I've ran into recently, and I'm hoping somebody Mr. Porter kind of touched on it when I texted him about it, but I had 2 showings scheduled. And then I got the listing agents texting me saying, if my buyer is ready, am I ready to put an offer? And I'm like, but it's coming soon. Wait a minute. So you now have sellers that are receiving offers before the house actually, is on the market.
Interesting. So technically, in coming soon, even if they do receive an offer, they're not supposed to vet an offer or accept an offer until it's been actively on the market, so that each of the buyers have an opportunity to tour the property and submit an offer. So that's interesting that the listing agent reached out to you and asked you to submit an offer while it's incoming soon. We're actually not supposed to do that.
Yeah, we know. And but no, not just one agent, two. And then one of them actually sent me an email from Showing Time.
So let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that they are simply collecting the offers, and they're going to wait until after it's active and after they've allowed showings before they actually start accepting it. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that that's what's going on there.
Okay. All right. We will hope.
What Jasmine is being very polite and not saying is that, of course, if that's a violation, you can report it.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. We're not into this to, be getting people and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But you want to inform people, like, well, are you, you can even ask, are you marketing? Are you selling off-market properties? Isn't that a violation? You just put it out there.
I was
if you say that to them, they're probably not going to help you with you or want to work with you. They're going to be afraid of you. You see what I'm saying? But you want to inform people in a way that, hey, that's not what you're supposed to do.
I just thought that the agent wasn't really right, because he actually, in the email in Showing Time, he said that before it even begins to tour, that the property would be under contract. And I'm just like, why would you be?
Well, that kind
anyway.
Yeah, he might not. Yeah, and don't worry about that. Trust me, MLS, they review listings. If they catch the violation, he's gonna get a fine. He's gonna get an email. He's gonna get a phone call. It's gonna happen. You don't have to be that. You're not necessarily the police, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, in all fairness to your buyer, like I said, you can report them. And so it's really up to you how you approach it. I think that the best thing to do is to kind of let them know that, hey, that's something that I believe could be a violation. If you're not sure if it is, just let them know.
But on the other hand, Mr. Porter, this is the other issue I'm having, because where I have it in coming soon, and then, okay, so then we're ready to, view it. And then I go to the buyer and say, well, it's under contract. And then they were like, well, how is it under contract? And you just got me this appointment. And,
like I said, it's clearly a violation. And the thing about it is, it's such a, like I said, the market is kind of bloody, and for the buyer side. So people are going to do things, and we've seen it done before. Unfortunately, it's almost human nature to try to do things. And that's why we have such a high standard of ethics as realtors, that we don't engage in that kind of stuff, because that's the kind of stuff that'll lead to the collapse of the market. So you want to make sure that you toe the line, and as much as possible, you remind people that they're bound to certain ethical standards. That like I said, each transaction is just a transaction. It's not worth your license. It's not worth getting in trouble to close these transactions. So do real estate the way you would train to do real estate, the way your classes taught you to do real estate, according to the law, especially in all ways.
Right.
But don't, just be careful when you see people skirting these things. Don't be tempted to do it yourself.
No,
because it's going to backfire on you. So that's all I wanted to say.
Right.
Well, now, no, go ahead.
I just want to comment quickly. This is Angela. I actually have a listing incoming soon, and I'm getting a lot of conversations that are coming in from the buyer agents. One in particular is, what price will your seller take to not list this property? I'm getting anything and everything you can think of. So, as far as being aggressive and there's a lot of those conversations taking place. So maybe you guys can I don't know if you, that's your experience, but I've been really, I've talked to Jasmine about it. I've been neutral. I haven't disclosed anything, but I'm getting a lot of those for one of my listings.
And Angela, those are, there's, like I said, those things can be tempting. That's not how we do real estate. That's just not how it's done. The market has to be open. You have to put it on the market. You have to list the property appropriately. That's what we're bound to do. Excuse me. That's what we're bound to do. And you're doing it on behalf of the broker and the brokerage. So don't make it, use that in whatever helps you, but put it on the market, open it up. If that person is really that aggressive, they'll put in an offer like everybody else. And then you'll have your seller vet those offers at the appointed time.
Right there, because that's a really good point. So the goal is we have to operate in the utmost ethics. We cannot, doesn't matter how tempting, doesn't matter who the person is that calls, how sweet, how many people they call, we cannot give any buyer an unfair advantage. Okay, so it doesn't matter. The property has to be on the market openly for all buyers to submit in offers so that our seller can get the highest and best deal. Doesn't matter how nice or kind the agent is on the other line. We cannot tell them, if your buyer just offers, $675 with no inspection contingency will be ratified tomorrow. You cannot. It does not matter how many times they call. You simply must advise them. The seller will consider all offers. Please have your buyer to submit their highest and best terms, because our responsibility to the seller is to make sure that we don't disallow them from receiving the highest and best terms and just kind of pigeonhole them with one person. Maybe that person would have offered $675, but what if the next person would have been a cash buyer offering $725? You know what I mean? Or what if accepting or reviewing all the other offers would have given them 10 or 12 offers, which would have allowed for a bidding war, and now they have better terms. Now they don't have to worry about doing repairs or any of those things. So the goal is to protect the market, to make sure that the market is fair for all buyers in the market, and then also to protect our sellers, to make sure that our sellers are getting the highest and the best value for their property, period. And we talked about agents in various levels of professionalism, and it's very unfortunate, but it is the case. So be that as it may, some agents will call and they will ask those things despite the fact that we are not allowed to have those conversations. So for those of us at Porterhouse, you must uphold that and say, I can't tell you that, that that's a conversation that we can't have. Once the property's on the market, then you'll have that information. I will upload it on Bright so that you will receive that information and everybody else will be able to see that information too. You can't give the person an unfair advantage.
And not only that, guys, just one last thing. Keep in mind, it could be a secret shopper.
And that happens more often than you think.
Secret shoppers in real estate, people who are testers, if you will, who are going to call and they work for the board, they're part of the board, and they're investigating to see what you're going to do and how you're going to answer these questions, especially if they have information that you might have been doing some of these things, like what Dee just shared with us. That person might get a secret call, and the person will present themselves as if they're the biggest, baddest cash buyer in the world, and it'd be the board, and then you're in trouble. So it's not, listen, we're trying to warn you guys in the nicest way possible. You don't want to get involved in that kind of thing. That's just not what you do. It's not how you were trained to do it. Don't engage in it.
One last piece, I'm going to put a pin in that, and then we can open it up. I see Anthony has his hand up.
And Curtis had something.
And Curtis has something too. One piece that we've got to keep in mind, the negotiations are between the buyer and the seller, and you've got to make sure that we keep it that way. It's not, between the agent and the agent, it's the buyer and the seller, and their interests have to be at the forefront. We're representing their interest, okay? buyer and seller, not agent to agent, giving somebody an unfair advantage. We don't do that at Porterhouse. All right. So Curtis and Anthony, I saw your hand up for a while. Curtis, I see you're unmuted. You guys go ahead, take turns. Anthony, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna speak, piggyback off what Angela was saying about the listing that she had. So she didn't go into detail. I think she's on a webinar, but the buyer's agent, they submitted an offer, I believe, for about 20,000 over the list price. And I guess in Bright, she has that she will present all offers once the property comes off. Once the property opens. Well, this particular agent has been extremely persistent. I believe he sent an email yesterday stating, what can we do to facilitate this transaction before it even goes on the market? So
that is violation. That's
so I know that Angela has not necessarily, I think she's kind of been ignoring him because of his persistence. But in this case, I'm new. I've never even dealt with anything like this, but it's pretty obvious that something doesn't seem right with this particular offer. And so do you ignore it, or do you say, we don't need to have these conversations? Or
so you don't ignore it, because you have to present all offers to your seller, but the conversation that you have with your seller is that of an offer deadline. When that property becomes active on the market, there has to be an amount of time that all buyers are allowed to tour the property. You can't just put it on the market today and put it under contract because you already had an offer. That's called pocket listing. And the board is very much against that, and they let us know that those are violations and it's not worth your license. So that is not something that we are going to do. Doesn't matter how tempting it is, doesn't matter how diligent that other agent is. You let that agent know that there's nothing that he or she can do to put you in a position where you're willing to lose your license. So you have to follow proper procedures, which means that the property has to become active on the market and allow for other buyers to tour the property and to submit offers as well. Now, here's the thing. After you've had the property active for 4 or 5 days a week and you don't have any other offers, by all means accept that offer, but you cannot accept that offer without making that property active on the market and available to all buyers.
So Jasmine, it's Angela again. I do respond. It's just the frequency in which I'm receiving the messages. They will get one response a day from me. Even though they're reaching out to me 2 or 3 or 4 times a day. So that's that. I'm not going to respond but one time a day. And my response is very consistent. It's the same response each time. So
perfect. And I know we've talked about that response. So you keep doing that. Do not allow anybody pressure you, even if they call or text you 20 times a day. Do not allow their pressure to cause you to do something that is simply unethical.
Can I throw one more thing in? So if I'm getting pressure on my end, my seller's getting pressure on his end as well. And he's prepared to not respond as well, but he's getting random visits and things like that as well. So, I'm lucky enough to have a seller who's following, the instructions I've given him, but he's getting it on that end as well.
So if that is the case, are those visits from agents?
No, they're just their neighbors. And they're putting the pressure on him. I've sold my house within the last week since it's been on Coming Soon. We're going to buy your property, and then trying to get additional information from him. And that their property is, in fact, did go on the market and sell in 3 days. And he's only had about 3 people come in as opposed to maybe my dozen.
So 3 days is reasonable in this market, but it has to be on the market, period. Even if it's ratified after the first 2 days, that's fine, but it cannot be ratified coming straight out of Coming Soon, going into ratified or going into pending. You simply can't do that. That's a violation. So if that person, those 3 people, they want to wait to tour the property until it becomes active, that's fine too. But you cannot allow them to tour the property, nor can you accept an offer, nor can you give them any insight as to what your seller will be willing to accept, period. So once it's active, then of course they can tour, and then your seller can accept that offer. And simply have that conversation with your seller. Let your seller know what's in their best interest. It's in your best interest to allow for competition, because that's what's going to drive the highest and best value for your property. And Curtis can give an example of what competition looked like on one of his listings that was listed at 629. What if somebody, what was it, 629? So
Yeah.
what if somebody had sent over an offer, hey, $20,000 over list price, so now we're 649, accept our offer today. Curtis got about 3 offers that were at $700,000 once it became active on the market. That competition drove the price up. The competition had people saying we're willing to pay $25,000 above, you know, the appraised value, removing contingencies. So it's absolutely in your seller's best interest to have that competition there, because the buyer, they're absolutely looking out for their own best interest, period.
And you know,
Something you wanted to share.
yeah, that's actually kind of what I was gonna chime in on, guys, is like, you know, this is all great. You know what I mean? Like, this is all phenomenal things that are happening. Like, Angela, if you have people knocking on your seller's door, you need to have business card. He needs to have your business cards in hand. Be like, hey, I can't say anything, but please reach out to my agent. You know, she'll take care of you. That might be a deal for you. You know, they might not be working with an agent. But I guess
my seller is very much prepared. He has lots of business cards. He's doing an excellent job, by the way.
But no, that's so with my listing, you know, the thing that I really realized with this listing in particular is that as the listing agent, I'm in control. This is my show. This ain't the buyer show. So I had 2 separate agents reach out to me before the property came on the market, calling me. They're ready. We don't even need to go, you know, you don't even need to list it. And it's like there's sharks in the water. And all I was doing was just chumming the water. You know, of course I have to list it. Wouldn't you list it? You got to see what's out there. The market's crazy, you know, but get your offer ready, because it's going to hit. And when it hits, I know, you know, there's going to be multiple offers. So it's like, to take this energy of them, you know, the buyers trying to like get you and force your hand. Like, no, this is my show. You have the buyer, and there's probably 10 other buyers out there, 15 other buyers out there. So you need to get yourself ready, because it's going to list. It's going to hit the market, and we are going to have people walk through this property, because we have to get our highest and best. So are you ready to come with your highest and best? I told one agent, go ahead and write your offer up. Get it ready, because it's going to go. Instead of entertaining him or me devaluing myself or me doing anything that might be unethical, or like, no, we're going to play the game how it's going to have to be played, but we're going to play how I want to be, how I'm playing it. And sure enough, I mean, I had another offer that came in. They didn't even see the property, and I had an over list price offer. You know, it was on the market then, but that agent calling me like, you know, hey, look at our offer. I was like, I already got a few others in my hand. You know, we haven't even done our showing yet. I appreciate the offer, but you know, the market's crazy. I'll keep you informed. So, I mean, I think that, you know, this also shows how we can work this to our advantage, especially on that listing side, you know, and to milk it for everything you can get it for, you know. So that's all I just wanted to say.
Good pointer there. Just like Curtis said, on the listing side, you and the seller, you're in control. So do not allow anybody to try to force your hand, period. Okay.
Jasmine, you had a question. Somebody put a question in the chat. It says, do you present offers to your client when the property is in coming soon status?
So that is a very good question, because we're duly bound to submit all offers to our clients. So we have to, but the conversation has to be had with our seller in advance that we cannot consider accepting any offers before the property is active and on the market. So the conversation you want to have, and guys, You guys are awesome. You're on fire today. We are well over our time. I want to value your times. We were supposed to be off this call 15 minutes ago, but with this great conversation, I don't want to just cut you off there. So we will answer this question, then we're going to let you go, okay? So have the conversation with your seller in advance about an offer deadline. Okay, you can have those offers in your seller's inbox. You can have them in your brokerman account, whatever date you and your seller determine that you're going to do offer presentation on. That's the date that you present the offers. As soon as an offer comes in, you must make your seller aware that there is an offer. But in terms of presenting the offers, in order for your seller to ratify an offer, that has to wait until the property has been active to allow for other buyers' competition.
Guys, I want to say this before we go, Jasmine, and just kind of an anecdotal to let you know that, you know, real estate is real, okay? I remember we were doing an open house. It was at $1 million listing we had quite a few people there, people showing up. And this one particular guy who's a business owner, he owns some type of business where they have a whole lot of $1 bills available. And so he jumps out of the truck, man, I'm going to buy this property. I'm going to buy this property. He said, but listen, I'm not going to buy it for the price that you're asking, but here's the cash. He had literally bundles and bundles of cash in the truck. He had a bag. And he said, I want you to write it up. He's talking to me. I want you to write it up and this, that, and the other thing. And this is my proof of funds. And he's showing me his bank account. I mean, this man never met me before. I didn't know him. He just talking and talking and we walking. And he handed a bag of cash to me. He said, you can keep that one. Just write this property up, man. We're going to make this thing happen. I said, so I don't want to touch that bag. I said, but listen here. I said, if you're serious, I'll write the offer up for what you're offering and I'll present it to the seller and the seller is going to make a decision. I mean, so you're going to have people that's going to be more, I mean, trust me, there's people out here that got money. And they're going to try to do everything they can to get your eyes popping out your head and getting you to make decisions that you're going to regret if you take them for the rest of your life. Don't do it. Like Curtis said, you're the listing agent, chum the water, get it bloody as you possibly can, get all the shocks circling. But do not stick your hand out there. Wait until it's fishing time. And then when it's fishing time, catch the big ones. Get the biggest one for your seller and bring it home.
Good point there. We're going to go ahead and close out, and I'll close out with this, guys. These are some excellent problems to have. Just like Curtis said, these are excellent problems to have. Remember, however, you want that competition. And when buyers and buyers agents are reaching out to you before the property is active, their goal is to stop the competition. They want your seller to only consider their offer and not entertain any competition. But competition is excellent for your seller. Competition is excellent for you as the listing agent. So don't cut off your seller's hand. Don't cut off your ability to earn even more of a commission. Don't cut off your seller's ability to earn even more on their proceeds by considering an offer before the property is active. Okay? You guys have been awesome. This was a great conversation. Thank you for each of the questions and the topics that you've introduced. If anybody has any last question, then we can go ahead and answer that. But I want to go ahead and let you guys go. Tonight, so our last week of training is tonight for our new agent training. And then we're going to have our Saturday boot camp. Okay. So our new agents, we will see you tonight at 7. And it's, of course, let me just rephrase that. It's for all agents, especially the new agents. For any of our agents, even if you're not brand new, these topics will be very enlightening for you as well. If it's a training you've had before, then you'll get to go into even greater detail. So join us for training tonight. Have a productive rest of the day. If you guys need anything, reach out to us, give us a call. All right. So technically, this is actually week 9 of our training because a couple of them we've had to go a little bit longer because you guys have had some great, questions, and we just want to make sure we get you everything that you need. Okay. All right, you guys, if anybody has any last minute questions, ask now or hold your peace until next week.
What time is the Saturday boot camp?
It's from 11 to 2. So we will send that information back out again in an email. So I'll extend it to everybody and we'll go ahead and put that in the chat as well, okay?
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
All right, be careful out there, guys. If you're
Have
out
a
there,
good
be
day.
careful.
Have a
Stay
great day,
warm.
everyone.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Day.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.